and welcome to lesson 1, accepting and allowing. So, accepting and allowing is the very beginning. It's where we start in our course. And it's also probably the hardest thing to master. It's something we probably will never fully master, that we will be practicing with until we're safely dead. So, I just want you to know maybe first how this course kind of came to be, how it was put together. And basically, after it was about 6 or 7 years after our rock bottom, where I felt like I was at a rock bottom where I just wasn't functioning at all. I was at the lowest low and could hardly get off the couch and operate in my life. I tried to sit down after 6 or 7 years of tools and healing and therapy and practice and capture in the tiniest pieces, how did I get from there to where I was 6 or 7 years later, where I felt there was a distinct shift of like, I am no longer in trauma. I am no longer in this kind of broken place. There's been a healing that has happened and an expansion that has happened inside of me. And there was a stability there. And so it was sitting down and saying, how did I get from there to here, if I can narrow it down to the tiniest steps? And the first step that I could recognize in healing was accepting and allowing. And what I mean by that is I feel like the first couple of years after our rock bottom, so our rock bottom included a disclosure of behavior that was just so beyond my ability to accept that in my life, accept that this had happened. And I feel like I woke up every day for a couple of years, kicking and screaming, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Like, this is not happening to me. No, no, no. And that kind of resistance, it was happening almost all the time in my body. Like, I was operating in my life as though nothing that was happening should be happening. And so everything, I was in resistance to everything. And finding the tools and the voices, Eckhart Tolle was one of those voices for me. He's a spiritual teacher. He wrote The Power of Now. He's one of our suggested readings. Helped me recognize kind of the futility of all of this resistance. So we talk a lot in the program and also in our practice, the meditation practice, the movement practice, about finding the present moment and bringing presence to whatever it is that's passing through, that's coming up for us. And so what that means is that I had to learn how to pause and notice when I was in resistance, which was almost all the time. And resistance can look different ways. Resistance can look like kicking and screaming, like this shouldn't be happening. And that might be a big thing like betrayal, or it could be little things like my spouse shouldn't be acting the way that they're acting.
And for me, resistance can mean, what am I afraid of? Or what am I running from? Or what do I not want to happen? And therefore I'm doing things to try to resist that from happening. And oftentimes when I try to resist that from happening, it happens worse than I even wanted it to happen. So I have to ask, what am I afraid of? What am I trying to cope with through unhealthy behaviors? What don't I want to happen? And be honest with myself. For me, like Becky said, we were in a process for years. The start of my awakening or accepting and allowing probably started about 2.5 years into me getting out of the mess that got us in, when I did what's called a full disclosure, where I met with a therapist and I talked about everything that I had done, like the history of my behavior. And that was, for me, the start of being honest with myself and others.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's another way we live in resistance, right? We like hide, and sometimes we even hide from ourselves. In fact, I think that is the most destructive and powerful resisting we do, is when we hide from ourselves. And in 12 step, we call that lying. We lie to ourselves and we believe it. And in mindfulness, it's kind of what we talk about as self-delusion, that there's a level of delusion that we all live in. And anywhere that we feel that tightness in our bodies or the way we're operating, when it feels like there's a contraction, there's a tightening, there's like a stress, okay? Stress equals resistance. If you think about it like in physics or something, stress means you're putting stress on an object. It's a resistance against that object. So anytime we are experiencing stress, that's something to get curious about. There's probably some way that we are resisting what is.
And sometimes, especially for me, I had no idea for most of my life when I was feeling stress or what were indicators of me feeling stress. Now I can look back and say, oh, when I get angry, when I get controlling, when I get short tempered, those are indicators for me of I'm feeling off. I'm resisting something. I'm not always sure what it is. But starting to be aware of my emotions, how I feel about things, what am I feeling? That's an important question to ask yourself. What am I feeling? And then just write down whatever comes to you. What am I feeling? What am I trying to resist? Why am I feeling this way? I might feel angry, happy, lonely, wanting to be away from everyone all at the same time. All those feelings might be just congested in there, and I'm resisting all of them. And then I come out with anger. Anger is my default way of coping with all those feelings. So learning to understand what I feel is part of the accepting and allowing process.
Yeah, that's perfect. I want to give you a couple tools, and you'll be getting tools through the meeting, through the lesson as you study it in your manual. The journaling is going to be really helpful and important for you to recognize, just like Nate is able to say, like, I recognize I feel all of these things at the same time. If this is new to you, you might be like, I don't know what I feel ever, like I don't even feel. And that's pretty normal when people come into this kind of a space. It's normal. The way the world kind of conditions us, we often operate in a space of numbness because everything around us kind of encourages us, and it's even like enticing us in some ways to just check out, and not feel and distract and numb. So it might feel really uncomfortable to feel those emotions.
Another thing that might help, I'm speaking mostly to men, when you feel angry, because that for me has been for my whole life the default. Well, when you feel off, you're just angry. You're angry at the other person. You're angry at your boss. You're angry at an employee or a coworker. You're angry at a client, whatever. You're just angry at whoever. A good question to ask is, well, what happened before I felt angry? What happened before that? And what happened before that? And what happened before that? And just keep asking over and over again, well, I feel angry. Why do I feel angry? Well, this person did this. Well, what did that person do? What did that make me feel? Like, I'll give you an example. I used to get angry all the time because my son was doing something that made me feel really angry. And then as I asked myself more, why does that make me feel angry? I got to the core where really it just made me afraid. It made me afraid that I wasn't being a good dad, or that I wasn't teaching him what he needed to know, and therefore he was acting like this, and that was a reflection on me. So what he was doing wasn't, sometimes he could do that same thing and I wouldn't be angry at all. But other times he did that and it made me feel really uncomfortable and ultimately afraid. Afraid of not being enough, or afraid of not teaching him what he needed, or just being a failure. So when you feel angry, stop and think, okay, why do I feel angry? And sometimes the default also might be, well, because of that person, because she did this. Just keep thinking, keep asking, why? What happened before that? What deep down is this making me feel?
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like the truth will always have a vulnerability to it. And that really is what needs the most allowing, is that vulnerability. Like fear, that's vulnerable. It's vulnerable to feel fear. Anger, that just feels powerful. It's like anger, there's something there that feels, especially I think maybe for a guy, like anger is a very acceptable emotion. There's some like safety in feeling anger, but fear is vulnerable. And so it's like the more space you allow to get curious about whatever it may be, the more you're bringing yourself into alignment, because you're not unconsciously pushing things away anymore. One other place I want you to kind of look to for this resistance is in your body. Because for me, that was huge. In betrayal trauma, I was experiencing, my body was so loud. That can be the gift of trauma. Your body gets so loud. It gets louder than your mind, for sure. And so I could feel that resistance in my body so clearly. But even without that trauma, your body is one of your best places. Your mind will tell you, I'm fine. But if you can feel that your shoulders are up here and you're walking really tight and you feel yourself huffing, like there's something going on there, And so the body is what will tell you the truth about whether you're in resistance or you're not in resistance. Because when the body is not in resistance, there's like this spaciousness, there's a relaxation, everything feels kind of settled and aligned. And when the body is under stress, the body will contract in one way or another. And so to use that body, and every time you feel a resistance, that you pause and investigate and allow and kind of use your breath, use your body, use this present moment to try to bring some allowing to whatever's happening. And as you do, you can kind of watch the resistance dissipate and everything in your system kind of settles and comes back into alignment, just one moment at a time. It's the tiniest little things, but it's like we're slowly, one moment at a time, rewiring our brain into a place of settling in, accepting, instead of constantly living, pushing away.
The practice of feeling your body, especially for me, has been an ongoing practice. It doesn't just happen overnight. In fact, for most of my life, I didn't know what I was feeling, nor did I ever recognize it really in my body. Now that I've been working on this for a while, I recognize, oh, I get a tingling in my shoulders when I'm really stressed. Or if I notice my shoulders get scrunched up and I'm really tense, or I take short steps, or I don't breathe. I go for long periods of time just not really breathing or taking short breath. But that, just so you know, that's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take some becoming aware of first what you feel and when you feel it. And then, okay, I do feel stressed. Where actually can I slow down enough to try to figure out where I feel that? Is it in my stomach? Is it in my chest? Is it in my shoulders? Is it in my hands? Are my hands sweaty or clenched? Is it in my face? Like, where do I feel those things? So recognizing first what you feel, like we talked about before, and then trying to connect the dots. Well, I feel this way. Where do I feel that in my body? And that will take time, just like anything, but with practice, it will come. And then you'll start recognizing it pretty easily that, oh, there it is. I wonder why I'm feeling that in my body. Because usually the body will talk first.
Yeah, that's awesome. One just challenge to throw out to you as you start moving into this week, if you feel up for it and if it feels safe and healthy and like it's creating more connection, this could be a great place to check in with each other at night and just say, today I felt myself resist or tighten at this time, and just share it. Just give it voice, name it, and just share it with each other. It's a place to create intimacy. It's a place to create that deeper emotional connection. And you're sharing about yourself. It's that rowing your own boat. We row our own boat, and then we allow someone else to see us in our vulnerability, and that's how we create intimacy. All right, good luck this week. You're going to be awesome.